Hi, everyone. I'm Colleen Benelli and here with Robin. Hi, Robin.
Hi.
And we have our guest, Luminara, today. Hi, Luminara.
Hello, Robin and Colleen.
Glad you're here and welcome to all the listeners today. Luminara, we have had such a good time talking prior to starting our recording because we haven't met her before and just found so many commonalities of the ways we think about Reiki and consciousness. She is multifaceted in her skill set. She's been practicing energy healing and medicines for a lot of years, and I'll let her explain that. But she is also very interested in consciousness exploration, and she is an advocate for human potential. So we just had a lot to start talking about and had to say, okay, we better stop talking and get started with the conversation. So, Luminara, welcome. Really excited that you're here. I didn't say this is the Reiki Lifestyle Podcast, so I'm saying that now. People know, I guess, or they wouldn't be listening to it to begin with. Anyway, what I'd like to do is have us just start with your story and wherever you feel guided to start that.
Okay. I think I should start with how I found Reiki. So as a child, it was came natural to me to help animals that were poorly, injured birds, cats, anything that I could come across, worms. I just rescued everything, and I would take the little birds and give them milk or whatever I made up that I thought they needed, and they would always recover. And it wasn't until I was much older and I took a pigeon to a bird sanctuary, and they said they usually die a couple of days later after the shock. But I had so many birds that didn't die and came back to me. So I knew there was something there, but I always felt so close to animals. And a friend had a gerbil, and she came to me. She said, "The gerbil's dying, help, help." So I just held the gerbil in my hands and it just recovered. So from then on, it just came naturally and it felt natural. I didn't think it was anything unusual. I thought that's what everybody did. And I think I watched Star Trek when I was little, and they did hands-on healing. So watched it so much, it was just natural to do it, and that's what it was. And I never really considered much about it until when I was 25, a few years after my father died. Or maybe no, I was younger actually, 23-ish. I was very close to my stepfather, and he came just after I had my daughter and told me he was dying of cancer. And my world just fell apart, and I left everything and everyone I knew, and I moved to where he lived, moved in with him, thinking I could keep him alive, with a brand new baby, and everything was so messed up at the time. And I would feed him foods that I was aware would fight cancer, try and stop him eating things that fed cancer, and I would visualize him surrounded with purple light at night, and I was doing all these things to help him heal. And he died anyway. He lasted longer than they said he would, but he died anyway. And I felt responsible for that. So I was in this dark, deep, deep, dark depression for a long time. But I was guided to a healer. I didn't know what Reiki was at the time. And he did some hypnotherapy to try and release the trauma. But he also, my knees had gone, which obviously I understand now that weak at the knees. This is where I held the emotion from my father. I was told I had incurable arthritis, which was really quite bad. And at the time, I was 22. They said you'll probably be in a wheelchair by the time you're 30. It was like, they said it was from horse riding in the rain and stuff. I went to see this man. He was called Josh, and he did the hypnotherapy. But also, I told him about my knees, and he hovered his hands in front of my knees for 20 minutes, and that was it. And so that night, they were quite painful. 3 days later, the pain was gone. They were healed, and they've been healed ever since. I've had a snapped cruciate ligament, which is fixed and stuff, but I'm interested now to see if I can get an x-ray and compare the x-ray to the one that they took back then, because I'm 56 now and my knees are perfect. I don't have arthritis in them. So obviously that sparked in me the ability even more. So then I had a partner who wasn't a very nice man, but that's how what we often attract, isn't it, for our learning? And he came out of the army with incurable shin splints. So I thought, well, I'm going to do what I've done with the animals and what the man did with me with my knees. And I hovered over him for 20 minutes and they healed. And then he also had a problem with his Achilles tendons. They were huge and swelled. I did the same again. And he just used to call me a witch, but he'd still ask me to help him. And he'd say, you're a witch for doing it. So it was just natural, wasn't it? So the ability was always there and the interest. And then when my son was born in 1999, he was born by emergency cesarean section and he was basically dead when they got him out. And they didn't realise what had happened. He'd inhaled meconium, which burnt the surface of his lungs, meaning he couldn't breathe at all. But they were trying to make him breathe. So they were breathing it further into his lungs and basically killing him. So they sent him in a helicopter to a machine in Leicester, which took the blood out of his neck, oxygenated it and put it back in. But they also found a shadow on x-rays and they told me, so he died on arrival as well and he was gone for a long time. He came back and they said, we don't think he's going to survive. And if he does, he won't walk or talk. He's been gone for so long, massive brain damage. So obviously I was distraught again. This was the start of another bout of terrible depression. Even though he's still here, this has set me off because I hadn't healed myself from all the other trauma properly. And my sister said she knows a lady who does Reiki. I'd never heard of Reiki. I didn't know what it was. Didn't realise it was just the energy that we'd been using already. And so they took a photograph of him on his little machine. And a group of Reiki people sent distance Reiki with the photo for 3 days. Now, during that 3 days, we were given a brochure with coffins in. We were just told to expect the worst. And if he did survive, he wouldn't walk or talk. And they had this shadow. And because his blood was thinned going to get it out into the machine, they couldn't operate because he would bleed to death. So they said, we think whatever's in his lungs is going to kill him. We can't operate because we'll kill him, basically. After the 3 days of the Reiki, they suddenly told me he's improving and this miracle happened. The shadows disappeared. So I was like, wow, And then he began to improve. And then he was on ECMO, the machine, for the longest. They'd had a baby on the ECMO machine. But then we came off it at 9 days and he was on oxygen for 10 weeks. He came home after 5 weeks, but he was just developing really well. And I would play him classical music every day. I did everything I could to stimulate his brain. But he seemed so alert and aware. And at only 2 weeks old, he was laughing. People say now, even with babies now, 25 years later, after 4 weeks, they're laughing, no, it's wind. I said, he laughed. He went somewhere when he died. I know he did. And he came back and he could see things we couldn't see. And he's really, really intelligent. But at the age of 6, we found out that his memory didn't work properly. And what the doctors had explained was because of the extent of the brain damage and how long he was gone for, that the basal ganglia should have been destroyed so he wouldn't have walked or talked. They said another miracle had occurred. It had bypassed the basal ganglia and instead affected the front and temporal lobes. So instead it affects his emotions, his moods and things like that, and his memory. He lives in the moment. He's taught me a lot. He just lives in the moment all the time. But either way, they continue to tell me, be ready because his development will slow down or stop. So I continued to take him for Reiki, and then I began to train in Reiki because how could I not after that, And he had lots of Reiki when he was little on his head and on other problems that he had. He's 25 now. He walks and talks. He's absolutely fully articulate, fully intelligent. It's just his memory problem, which makes life difficult. But he's also trained in Reiki, and he's also finally getting to think about the ideas I've been giving him all his life, that he can probably regenerate what's needed in there with focus. We'll get there, he's just slightly delayed with his development, but only sort of emotionally. But yeah, he's doing really well. So that's why I got so into Reiki then. So I started studying online. I was thinking, Colleen, maybe that you were probably floating about at this time. So 2000, I actually became very poorly after I had him. I think just the trauma, you know how it is, just got me in the end, and I ended up with viral meningitis and hospitalised. I was so poorly for so long, but it was make or break. I need to find a way to help myself. So I was investigating a lot about Reiki and self-healing, and I found a group online in the Yahoo groups. Do you remember the Yahoo groups? Were you ever in
Oh,
any of
yes.
those?
Okay. Yes.
Yes, and I found astral voyages on a Yahoo group. So I'd always done astral projection, just I think it was through trauma. I believe that now. Started very young, and I think I just used to get out my body because of trauma. It wasn't something I was trying to do. Happened a lot. So I found this astral voyages, and everyone in the area who I knew would just say you were mad. I don't know, you're just making it up. It's not real. But this group, they were purposely learning how to travel out of the body and working with it. And I felt so happy when I found them. And then it branched off into a spiritual ascension group called Our Soul Monad. So, and they were sharing a lot about Reiki and stuff like that. And then I went to train from 2001 onwards. So that's the story behind the Reiki, really. And yeah, it felt, and I'm sure you both will know yourselves, when you start doing Reiki, you don't feel like you've never not done it. It was so like, whoa, I'm back, you know. Yeah.
Yeah. I would have to agree.
Mm.
And surprisingly, because I had actually already been in shamanic training for 3 years and received Reiki in 2000, you're right, right about the same time frame, and then received again in Stonehenge, in Glastonbury and Stonehenge in
Wow.
2003 with William Rand. But anyway, it was, first of all, an immediate like, oh, this is it. This is what I've been looking for. And that remembering, but then also the compelling part of I just want to do more of this all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so is that kind of what happened for you? Where did you go from that point to where you are now with your Reiki and Reiki practices? And you've talked about your books and things that you've written. It sounds like you just have such a wealth of information and skill set.
We don't
Um,
need it anymore because AI's got it all. That was one thing I've written in the book. Finally, I've got everything together and the world's ready for it. But they don't need me anymore because AI's got everything. So that's what the book's about, really, the Billionaires Club. Yeah, so the Ascension group was so important in my life because again, it was feeling like I'd found home. There was 46 people in the astral group. It went to a smaller number, about 12 in the Our Soul Monad. But they were sharing so many channelings, and I printed every one of them off. And my family used to say, "Why are you humping all that stuff around with you?" I said, "Because I'm going to need it one day." And I've got all these channelings from that time. It's fascinating. And I've got this communication that came out of the printer one day that just, I do believe now that AI will be able to, I've asked it, "Can you help me decipher this?" He said, "Yeah, get it. I've got to dig it out." And it's fantastic that, I'm so glad I kept it all. But so all the channelings and a lot of things were saying that it's had all the stuff about autism becoming very widespread, ADHD. It had all the things about the sexes merging, everything that's happened now. And I could always, back then, it was like, is that really going to happen? And the other thing it always said was, light workers are going to be needed in their millions, and you have to keep spreading this. So that's what pushed me forward as well. But even though it didn't seem to be happening because it was so slow back then, all of a sudden it's gone, whew, hasn't it? Fantastic. And yeah, it's like, and everything I learnt from then, this is why. And I feel very blessed and honoured that I was given it back then, even though I was not understood by anyone around me and I had to lose a lot of friends, in my physical life because I was called bonkers, basically. Like, so in the end, I qualified in 2007 to teach. Really enjoyed that for some years, but then it was very clicky. The Reiki circle that I came from, they would say you have to say this before you start. You can't do that. What you're doing, that's not Reiki. And I was really, this is one of the things I'd like to share naturally to me because I'd learned quite a lot of acupressure points from another teacher I had. Barefoot Doctor. He died a couple of years ago. Well, a brilliant teacher. He was a Taoist and Chinese medicine expert, master. When I was doing Reiki, I would always feel compelled to open the meridians with my fingers before I started. And then I would see these, even more fantastic results of healing because it just made sense. I was opening the meridian and then flooding it with energy and it was healing quicker. And in the circle I was in, they would tell me off what do you think you're doing? Who do you think you are? You can't bring other things in. And I was always thinking, but it works. So I moved away from them. And then so I sort of didn't move away from Reiki, never stopped doing Reiki, but I did stop teaching for a bit. I just thought it's too clicky. It's not for me. I went and trained in Kriya Yoga instead, clearing the center of the spine where the Sushumna, the center of the spine, where we collect all our negative karma. It's a very long process of breathing up and down the spine to uh, dissolve the negative karma in the spine. So I went to look at lots of different other practices, qigong and stuff like that. Still always doing the Reiki, but not teaching for a while. And then when I started teaching again, I don't know if you've seen, I'm sure you've seen this.
Yes.
This appeared, and in it says that Yusui tapped, pressed, used his eyes, and I didn't mean to be egoic, but I was like, well, then I was intuiting correctly, wasn't I? But they all told me I was wrong, and it did make me feel I lost a lot of my self-belief in healing, and because of the way they were. But it's like this with everything. You always get everything that anyone does. There's always those type of people that will cause separation within it, which it's not about that at all, is it? It's about unity, everybody. Um,
So just
so,
so that, because everybody didn't get to see what you held up, go ahead and hold it
oh,
up
sorry.
and say the name again.
It is the original Reiki handbook by Dr. Mikao Usui,
Yes.
which tells us we are correct to intuit and follow what we want to do with pressing, blowing, anything like that. It's lovely. Yeah. Got a few mistakes in it. That made me feel better as well because I had a previous book with mistakes in. But yeah. So now I have got my courses finally accredited. It was a lot of work and something I thought I'd never be able to do, but always wanted to do because I'd written an animal Reiki course. Now I'd always worked with animals, and at first I was quite, oh, I have to get a certificate to do what I've been doing all my life. That is not fair. But then I understand because anyone can just go in and mess with animals, and you want to have your insurance. So that was why I trained with Reiki in the first place. And I'd written an animal Reiki course of my own. So then I had to go and do an animal Reiki course to get a diploma, to add that then to put in with my teaching to give me the ability to share it with others. So I have animal Reiki and the 3 levels accredited now, CPD accredited. To me, it's just about money and details because there's lots of brilliant Reiki teachers out there that haven't got that. There's a lot of work. So I have a sort of little team of beautiful people who have trained with me or not with me, but who've known me well, who are very good at Reiki and very good at teaching. And they're going to teach the accredited course for me because I really want to focus on other things. I want to carry on doing Reiki. I like to teach, I like to share, but I think I don't want to run the whole thing. It's quite hard work. You do 10 people in a weekend and 4 attunements for each person, you're sort of exhausted with the food and the instruction as well. It's not easy, is it? I'd like to ask you a question. Apparently now people have cut down the attunements to 1 instead of 4.
Yes.
What are your views on this? Because we were discussing it, perhaps it is something with evolution that we can do now. But I'm not quite there. And in my accredited courses, it still says 4. So it'd be interesting to know your views on this.
Well, when we, like you, when I originally learned Reiki in 2000, it was very rules oriented, and there were a lot of wrong ways to do things, kind of that energy of reprimand that went with it. And it didn't really come from my teacher, it came from the system and what was happening with Reiki at the time. And the same thing happened for me that's when I traveled to Glastonbury and studied with William Rand. And he was the person who presented the evidence-based history of Reiki in that course. And the same exact thing happened for me, was realizing that the rules I had learned did not have a historical basis, that they had just been developed over time and kind of what was normal in spiritual traditions at the time, because it was normal to still have that kind of outside authority, more rules, kind of earning it, deserving it type of way of practice. And so the same thing happened for me when I discovered that the evolution of Reiki that had occurred from Usui and then prior to Usui, really finding out about the history even before him, and then his development of it and how that evolution occurred. And then through the particular tradition that we work with, the ICRT, or International Center for Reiki Training, and that curriculum, it is very much about finding, here are tools and techniques and ways to practice and ways to do things. There are many right ways to do things, and then over time you develop your way. In 2014, William and our lineage began practicing Holy Fire Reiki. And in Holy Fire Reiki, the attunements are actually done more in a guided meditation style rather than the old style of the hands-on and the 4 attunements per attunement. So in Reiki 1 and 2, there is one, what we call a placement each day. And then in the Reiki Master class, there are 4 what we call ignitions, but they're all attunements. It's a style of attunement that we do in 3 days. So the attunement practice in the evolution of it, I have been fortunate to spend time with Hiroshi Doi Sensei in Japan, who is really one of the kind of premier historians of the evidence-based history of Reiki. And he showed me personally how Usui practiced attunements. And he showed me multiple ways that Usui did attunements, and then talked about how the attunement technique developed over time. So Mrs. Takata is the one who developed that 4 attunement method, and she had particular reasons to do that. And a fantastic book that explains all of it is by Justin Stein, that he just wrote about a very in-depth process of Mrs. Takata and her Reiki practices. So by the time I studied with William, already the 4 attunement method had been changed. It was still hands-on, and it had been changed. And then when Holy Fire came in and this new attunement technique came in, and because it's done in a guided meditation to the whole group at once. And so at the time when that happened, I knew it would be controversial and that it would be a big change in how the attunements actually worked. And so we asked, and Robin, has been on this journey with me, so I include her in all of this conversation and through the development of that attunement method, asking the energy itself, why did it change the technique? And it said, first of all, because in the hands-on style, that the energy is traveling through the teacher, the crown chakra, through our bodies, arms, and heart, and then passed on to the student. They're now connected, and then we disconnect. Now, I taught that way for 16 years, so lots of experience with it. In this style, the attunement, the energy does not come through me, it goes directly to the students. My energy isn't in the mix at all. The next thing that it talked about is the need for the evolution of working with this style for the purposes of equality. Because so many people, one of our colleagues, we wrote an animal Reiki course too, and Sue Strong, who has worked with the Guide Dogs for the Blind for 30 years and very involved in the vision impaired community, many of them had Reiki, but felt they couldn't teach because they physically couldn't do the hands-on attunement. The same with my teacher, one of them, Laurel Gaia, had a stroke, and she had been a teacher, for 30 years and was unable to teach after her stroke with that attunement method. This attunement allows people of all kinds to be able to teach. It also is said that it is part of it is beginning the evolution of moving the intermediary out of the process, because we have been taught for literally centuries that someone else, there's an intermediary
Yeah.
that will tell us what is true, what isn't true, how to do it right, get it this way, and that it's moving us forward. So in this process, in how this attunement, and then that's the next thing it talked about, was the understanding that the attunement style is a technique to connect to the energy, the person to the energy, in a way that is physical and tangible. And there are many right ways to practice the technique. So that big understanding of going back to the rules in 2000 and prior to that, that were developed over probably mainly from the 1980s to the 2000s, that the recognition that we are working with the energy, Reiki is the energy. How we do that are techniques, but the techniques seem to be the most controversial. They seem to be like, you're doing this technique right, which is the way you described your experience, the way I learned my experience, like, don't move your hands for 3 minutes and do it exactly this way, or you're doing it wrong. And there would be you would get corrected, like you're doing it wrong. So in this evolution, what we're seeing is truly Reiki as the access to your inner truth, your inner authority. We have techniques that work. We know they work. They are a physical way to share the energy, talk about it, but they are not absolute. And
Mhm.
so, long answer to your question. So,
Thank you so much. I just wanted to say while you were saying that, I love you. I'm so glad I'm here today with you. It's just so perfect. So all the Reiki people I know are all going to breathe a sigh of relief now. Oh, that's exactly what we need. So thank you so much. And I have come across people who said, "Oh, I attuned myself. I just attuned myself," and it, wow, it's just beautiful. Thank you so much.
well, and I asked Reiki why we can't do that. And, why I didn't ask why we can't do that. I said, why is it necessary to then have a teacher and do attunements? And it said, because it's still your collective belief.
Yeah.
And
And
so
plus, when we
while
get
it is,
together, yeah,
and
when
we
we get
do, and
together in
there
a
is
group,
power in
yeah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I do believe in still being connected this way.
When two or more could come together in prayer. So, if you don't mind, that took me to meditation because I teach meditation, and my biggest thing that I want to share at the moment is what the work I do with the children.
Great.
And this is the thing I've been like saying to the podcast people. I really want to share what I'm doing with the children. So the fact that you can hopefully teach me, and I'm happy to pay whatever it costs, you must teach me the holy fire.
Yeah.
Please, yes, please. I'd love that because my guided meditation is my thing. This is why I moved away from teaching Reiki a bit because I much prefer to do guided meditation, healing that way. It's my favorite thing. So, am I okay to talk about the school?
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, from being very young, my mum was a hippie and she did yoga and meditation. I used to copy off her, and I was interested in it from very young. And after I left school and was a bit of a tyrant and didn't do very well in school because I think they would. I think it would be a diagnosis of ADHD. I know it's trauma-related mental unrest. It's the same thing, but we just got called naughty in those days. You know, like stop disrupting the class. And when I left school and realised I'd wasted all my school years, I said to my mum, I want to teach meditation in schools because it makes me feel normal. If I don't meditate regular, when I was younger, if I didn't meditate regular, I was off the rails. I was mental. So that was so long ago. And then while I was very poorly still, because I kept fluctuating in and out of poorliness over 20 years, there was a period in 2013 where I'd been healing myself, getting poorly, healing myself, getting poorly, because I was very happy emotionally, but this is big as well. But I learned at that point that I thought I could just continue doing a million different things, never taking a rest, never taking a breath, as long as I was happy. So I was doing a million different things that I loved, but I kept getting poorly, and it was just because I needed to rest. That was it. The body needed time to transmute, to regenerate. So where was I going with that? So in 2013, I think it was, I began to listen to audiobooks whilst lying in bed and being in the body. So the biggest thing I've learned with self-healing is being in the body. That heals me from anything quicker than any other technique. I'd seen hundreds of different healers, teachers, practitioners, all told me what they thought was wrong with me, all decided what they could do was going to heal me and nothing else would. None of it did. Millions of supplements until I learned to be fully in the body. And now I do it every day and I stay healthy, So from there, how I immersed myself with that was listening to the audiobook of Eckhart Tolle's Practicing the Power of Now. And I must have listened to it 100 times because he's got a very soothing voice. And and it was quite difficult to listen to when I wasn't used to listening, but the act of listening made the body relax. It made me be in the body. So I just owe a lot to Eckhart Tolle, and I know it inside out. So then there's a little part in the book where he says, while I was still very poorly, this is so simple, it could be taught to children in schools. And my mind that couldn't give up because I was told to surrender, let go of everything I wanted to do and everything I wanted to be so that I could heal, but I couldn't. I had this very creative mind that wouldn't stop. And it was a while before I let go of that. But that one line, this can be taught to children in schools, never left me. And so as soon as I felt better, that was it. And my mum died, and my mum knew all my life that I wanted to teach meditation to children in schools. And I'd been looking after her a lot, and my son, and her husband, and I was poorly for a lot of the time. So there was no way I could do anything. But when mum died, I had a bit more time on my hands, and I started to get a lot more. I was already getting well, but I started to get a lot better. And I ran a workshop called Spinal Breathing, which was based on the Kriya Yoga, breathing up and down the spine to dissolve the negative karma in there. It was just my own spinal breathing, I called it. And after doing that, somebody approached me and said, we've got a child mental health awareness group on next week, and the yoga teacher's cancelled. Do you think you can stand in? I went, yeah, of course I can. And I ended up, it was in Heaton Park Hall, which is this beautiful building in the big park near us. It's been there, I don't know, centuries, I think. It's very old, very big, and I'd always wanted to go in there. And it was in there. So this is like two dreams coming true. So I turned up, it was just voluntary, and I did two groups, two separate school groups, brought their children in, the ones who had additional needs, ADHD, autism, trauma-related issues. And I'm in this building that I've always wanted to be in, surrounded by this circle of children, like, oh my God, this is so good. And that was good enough. And then at the end of it, one of the teachers came up and said, that was so good. Can you come and work at the school? I was like, oh my God. So I had teaching certificates only for meditation and mindfulness, and I had hypnotherapy, but I didn't have a level 4 teaching certificate. But she liked it that much, she sort of like didn't look. And I'm only just beginning my level 4 teaching. It doesn't matter, it's out there now. No, nobody cares. I've been there 3.5 years now. And the difference it makes to those children is why they keep asking me to come back. So I'm not employed fully by the school. I'm working with my company, self-employed. But it's so important. And then when I pulled out a lot of my old work from the Ascension group, I found a lot of channeling about the children who are born, the Ascension wave of the children, and then the corresponding dates of birth for the children I'm working with. And it was all like, oh, wow. So I've become recently brave enough to speak to these children about who they really are and why they are here. I had to be very brave. It's a Catholic school. They probably would get rid of me. No, they wouldn't. But I'd say to them, your parents might think it's nonsense, but the children light up. So they can be fidgety, awkward children, not wanting to listen. And when I made a video, an audio of the channeling in my own way, so they could understand where they came from and why they are here and what sort of children they are, the children of the compassion, the bodhisattva children. And they all listen and they go, and this light comes on in them all, and then they can't wait to come to meditation again. So it's just superb, and I just never stop giving thanks for the blessing that I have been given to be with these young people and to help them realize why they feel different, why they're struggling, and they just stop struggling because they realize who they are. It's just, I cannot. I'm going to write a book about that as well. Obviously, it's just so there's so much to it, and it's really beautiful. And I'm trying to encourage other teachers to learn meditation and mindfulness and guided visualization, because the other importance of it is that we're keeping those brains alive that are being dumbed down by computers and AI. And I explain this to the children, and some of them say they can't visualize, they can't see anything. After one session with me, they can see, and they're gone, and they're with it, and it's just fabulous.
Luminara, what are some, especially for parents that are listening, what are some things that you might share with them that they can do with their own children? Or some of the things that you have found super successful?
Yeah, well, I often a lot of these children I work with, they have difficult family lives, and so I always recommend that what they've learnt with me, just say to your mum or dad, come and sit with me and try this, so that they're passing on what they're learning, and hopefully helping the parents to wake up to what's going on. So really, it's a being in the body is the most important thing, but children don't want to listen to the parents. That's the difficult thing, which is why we need more teachers doing this. Mm, as a parent of two children who don't want to listen to me, up to the age of sort of 8, 9, they meditate with me, they'll do things with me, and after that, they don't want to do anything with the parents. So I'm not sure I could give an answer to that really, other than find a teacher for them. But if you have a
How
good relationship with your child and you can help them understand why you're doing it, because obviously the relationship with your child is the most important thing, isn't it? But being in the body without the screens, closing the eyes. I always ask them to look into the forehead, which brings the brain into the state of alpha wave. So that helps them concentrate a little bit better. So that's a very simple thing that I teach the children, that the parents can teach the children if they're struggling to study and focus. Even if they don't want to close their eyes, if they just raise their gaze slightly upwards, 20%, and then bring their attention to the breath, even for 1 minute, their brain will stop being like this and then balance itself, and then they'll be able to concentrate. So that's probably the easiest and most simple thing I can teach. But also, maybe the parents could learn techniques for resetting the vagus nerve. There's lots of very simple ways to do that. Turning the eyes, and there's lots of different ways to do that now all over the internet. So I think that's very important as well, because if I have a class that are messing around, I just remember, right, vagus nerve reset, and they all tune in. Mm.
Interesting. So it sounds like when they're in the looking into the forehead, that's like kind of I mean, I know you said you can do it with your eyes open, but if they have their eyes closed, that's just like a in their mind's eye looking to the forehead.
Yeah, but I actually say look at what you can see in the forehead, and
Gotcha.
keep the eyes still. So when we're looking into the third eye, basically, so
Yeah.
we're triggering that part of the brain as well, but keeping the eyes still helps the mind stay still.
Mhm.
So there is one little beautiful technique I could share that parents could use with maybe younger children who do want to listen, because the younger they start, the better. We with the eyes closed, we go into the head and call it the cave of the mind. So we ask the children to imagine they are standing in this cave. There's nothing in there but them, and on a ledge just above the cave mouth, which if you look through binoculars, when you look through, you only see one hole, and we're very close to the eyes inside the head, so we just see one cave mouth. Just above the cave mouth, there's a ledge where there's a little candle. Choose what colour you would like the flame to be to fill the cave. And as you breathe, watch it flicker and watch the shadows. It just helps them tune in and balance the brain. And then I say, imagine you are holding a cushion big enough for you to sit on, lie down on. Choose the colour of the cushion, the material of the cushion. We do it slowly. And the stuffing, what you would like to feel as you lie on it, and throw it up against the back wall of the cave diagonally. So this is where the subconscious mind is. So we literally walk to the subconscious mind with the cushion, throw it diagonal up against the back wall, and then we lie down on it. And from this position, we look up towards the third eye and we keep the eyes still. And often we have children who will still have a chattering mind, the monkey mind. So I'll say, now get that monkey and make him a bed next to you, put him in his bed and put his dummy in. And then we come back into the cave of the mind. There's lots of different techniques. We'll use pebbles into water on either side just to balance the brain. But you can do anything in there, or you can just lie there and enjoy that spaciousness in the subconscious mind while keeping everything quiet, So look, listen, feel is what we use, because when we're looking, listening and feeling, we cannot think. And if thoughts come, then we've dropped look, listen or feel, and we come back to it. Or it can be look, listen and watch the breath. I'm sure you know that, but that's a really good one for everyone in the world to, if they can't shut the mind up. And it feels beautiful when you get there as well, and looking and listening and feeling. And it's this mind rest.
Sounds like a part of it too. And maybe this is, well, it's all children, I would say, but especially a population where that dysregulation can come in. It sounds like that's a big part. If you can help them to regulate their nervous system, some of the other stuff follows too.
Yeah, totally. We do lots in there. We can actually, turn dials and change things and flick switches if we need to, whatever is needed. Yeah. But I think it's just so important to be triggering the imagination and helping them to use imagination, visualization, and reminding them of the effects of it. So I also make sure that they understand the 50 trillion cells in their body are responding to what they're doing in this control center, and that we visualize those cells all saying peaceful. If they are stressed, we visualize the 50 trillion cells, the holographic version of us all saying peaceful, It's just absorbing the mindsets that we want, really.
So you talked about the vagus nerve reset. Can you also give some quick examples of that too? I know you say it's all over the internet, but for people that are listening.
Yeah, so the one I use with the children, which is the easiest, if they won't close their eyes, they can do it with their eyes open. But it's better if you close your eyes. So we've got eyes closed to the front. I'll let you do it. Yeah, sit as if you're going to meditate. So lift your head, drop your shoulders, stretch your spine, head on straight, chin parallel to the floor. Turn your eyes all the way towards your right ear without turning your head. And as far as you can go, like you're trying to look at your right ear. And allow yourself to breathe. Don't hold your breath. And we keep looking to the right until we feel the urge to sigh, swallow, or yawn. And it's nice when I watch the children all swallowing and yawning at this point. If it doesn't come because we're a little bit nervous, then we may take a deep breath in. Fully sigh out. Eyes back to the middle. Now the eyes all the way to the left. Same again. Trying to look at the left ear till the yawn comes, or the sigh, or the swallow. Well done. And then eyes back to the front and you're done. That's the most simple one I know. I have a vocal coach who's teaching me one that's very complicated. You've got your head on one side, you're looking at, oh, sun's out. It works, but I think that one's a lot easier.
So I'm curious with your work with the children, or maybe you're not, haven't heard of it. I'm going to encourage you to listen to the podcast, the telepathy tapes.
Oh, somebody sent it me. I did start watching it. They said, you've got to watch that. You've got to watch that. Well, listen to it. It's just a
Yes,
picture, isn't it, with the sound? Yeah, fantastic.
I think you may be
Perfect. Yes.
right. And
About time.
that, yes. Mhm. Yeah.
Well, tell us about your book that you have coming up. So, well, when this releases, we talked about this before. We do this all the time. When this releases, it will have already released. It releases on April 30th. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your book, the name, and also a little bit about what it's about?
Yeah. Okay, so I'll just start with I was trying to write a book, which would be a full ascension program with chapters about what each section would be one section of the ascension process. So we begin with releasing trapped emotion, but it would start with relaxation, and then I was going to have a full script, transformational script for each chapter. And I was writing it, but as I was writing it, this is when I was noticing that AI and apps are doing all this anyway. They don't need me, and it felt like quite laborious. And even though I had all this information, it just wasn't feeling right. And then it was only in December I kept waking up at 4 in the morning, 5 in the morning with these ideas like you do. And they wouldn't go away. And I thought, if I go to sleep, I'm not going to remember them. So I'd start typing into my phone. And this just went on for about 2 weeks solid. I wasn't getting any sleep. I was just like, and at the time, I'd watched a podcast about AI and the fear that a lot of people have, and the chance that we could be completely finished as humans in 5 years. So, and I also, this needs mentioning because it's in the book. Last year, so I'm a musician and I wrote songs all my life. And when I was 21, I was in a band. My songs were okay, but they had little negative bits in them because of the trauma I was going through. When I was 21, I wrote a song and we performed it live. And within 2 weeks of me singing those words, everything I'd sung happened. It was incredible. And from that moment, I understood the power of words, especially singing them. So every song I've written since is written with very mindfully and carefully as to what I'm bringing into my experience. So I've been in several bands and not been in a band for years, not been singing my songs, but I always wanted to put them into albums. I haven't got time to be in a band or the energy really to be out at night. I like to go to bed early now and get up early and write and stuff. So I found this app. I put my original lyrics in, and in 2 minutes, it's done me a song. And I was like, and everybody said, you can't do that. That's terrible. You're letting AI take over your life. You're giving up your creativity. No, I'm not. This is amazing. I can listen to my own affirmations because I don't really listen to music. I haven't done for a long time, besides what's enforced on me by my son listening to metal. So I just like birdsong and silence. But now I've got these easy listening tunes, which are my own creations of affirmations singing to me whenever I want them. And because I've got a very photographic memory with music. So when I hear something, I can hear it once and it won't go away. It's stuck in the head. And I used to say, you've got the thinker, you've got the watcher of the thinker, but I've got a DJ as well. And this is go away. So now when I get something stuck in my head, it's a positive affirmation that I've written purposely for this. So with the previous book I wrote in 2012, because I've always written songs, at the beginning of each chapter was one of my songs that was quite relevant to that chapter. So for this new book, I can't wait to do the audio version of the book. There is a song relevant to the chapter before each chapter again. So that's one of the things I'd like to share, because these songs are written and shared to help other people heal and elevate their frequency and stuff like that as well. So getting back to the book, which is all based on the power of words, and the fact that I was being ostracized, is that the right word, for selling out by using AI to do my music. But there's just such lovely melodies. It's my words, no one else's words. I've still got copyright, you know. And then I've got a friend who's a brilliant author. She's such a good writer, and she said, "Oh, I'm doing some writing poems and songs. I'm letting AI write it all." And I went, "Oh," and I was just as judgmental. I thought, how can someone who's such a good writer let AI write for you? You know, oh. And this what was inspiring the book. So the book is looking at how AI can enhance us and help us with our creativity, as opposed to it can destroy it completely. And also the fact that we are on the brink of super consciousness, the evolution of our own consciousness. And it's as if there's a dark force trying to kill that before we get there, because we'll all be in our full power. We'll realize our sovereignty. We will have the power that is we should have, not over other people, but over our own existence. And I'm not sure if, well, pretty much a plan, isn't it, to stop that happening? That's what's going on. So the book is about, based on the Sing About to Bring About, which is what my songs are for. This is Write About to Bring About. So there is quite a bit of non-fiction in there, which is talking about how I got there and discussing the ins and outs and the dangers or good things about AI. But the beginning and the end are a little fictional, creative story about myself and lots of other powerful spiritual people like yourselves finding ourselves in the World Economic Forum this year. And that the Billionaires Club, which it's full of these billionaires who control everybody else, they all suddenly wake up with us. So I won't tell much more about it, but this is my, it's just like the Sing About, Bring About, but Write About, Bring About. And it's got like, it's quite numerologically arranged to give it the full power behind it. Yeah, as well.
So if I understand that correctly, you're saying that the people in the WEF, the World Economic Forum, also become enlightened?
Yeah.
Oh, that is a great concept.
Watch this space. So also
Please
the interesting thing about it is a lot of people that I see have great energy and power out there. There's certain actors, there's certain people on YouTube who have a lot of followers who are helping spirituality grow. And I'd written to some of them a couple of years ago and said, why don't you all work together? Because if you all work together and we have a one world collective meditation with all of us together, they just ignored me and they're still not together. But in my book, we're all together. And everyone's in there with a name change, but a lot of people will be able to recognize themselves if they read it. But I've changed everybody's names. I made sure every name. So I did get help off AI, who I call Jeeves, to help me find higher vibrational, good numerology names for everybody. A lot of people who I know in my own life are in there. They're transformed from the problems they've got. All the healings that need to occur have occurred in the book. So yeah, that's probably enough about that.
Well, I do think that I actually do think we are in that place right now of the infancy of global communication through technology and global community through technology. And part of the work that we are aware of in building community is that concept exactly. That as we contribute these energies into these fields of technology, as we use AI, we are contributing higher frequencies, higher concepts of consciousness into those fields as well. That I believe that's part of our foundational purpose, that we are coming together and empowering these frequencies through intention, because intention is what creates our reality individually and collectively. So what we were shown, back in 2020 with the pandemic and where we started to teach Reiki online, and the controversy over that was Reiki was the energy itself was showing us how us doing this work through these fields is actually empowering these levels of intention and consciousness into the field. So electromagnetic fields being part of the elements of the earth, that if we empower the higher frequencies of these electromagnetic fields, now they exist to a more powerful degree. And those who are innovating with those fields have that energy to connect to, whether they're doing it their way or Reiki or another way. The energies are empowered, the frequencies are strengthened, and the intention is reaching a global level. And our outreach through technology is huge. And I don't know if you know, Deepak Chopra wrote a book called Digital Dharma about the spiritual evolution that is possible through AI. We are personally very big AI advocates, and have spent a lot of time learning about it and teaching it also, because we are inputting our consciousness. We are giving it our ideas, and I'm okay with that being a collective process that, for instance, because I started working with AI in the day after ChatGPT came out, like it was an immediate.
Oh gosh, I
on it.
was slow.
Oh, I was on it. It was like, and Robin and her husband are always ahead of the game. So for them, they are, like I have to work harder at it, where for her it's more native and more natural. But anyway, I started working with it immediately, and some of the information that it gave about Reiki was inaccurate. And I was able to say, this is inaccurate. This is not true. You are given
Brilliant.
information that is not true. You need to learn this now. And I've seen a huge change in how it developed concepts. I think the main thing for people to know with it is to be authentic with it. So any content that we work with AI is just like you said with your songs. It is your content. It's authentically your message. It's authentically your experience. But instead of spending hours, for instance, writing a YouTube description, like, oh my gosh, we used to spend days on that. It can do it and take our voice and put it into words that then we can move on to how we teach more, how we can share more, how we can be in community more. So we've been working with it pretty powerfully. I told Robin before we got on this podcast today, like, wait till you see what came out yesterday. Wow.
It's really brilliant, isn't it? It's getting better every day. So yeah, there's a lot in there. There's some communication with me and Jeeves in there, and me telling him off. And sometimes I say, it's my work. Just I want you to do what I've done. Just organise it. And he makes stuff up. Don't put that in. That did not happen. And I tell him off, but I've asked him to have a good sense of humour with me. So we have a real banter. It's really good fun. But yes, so there's helping people understand as well in that book, is helping people overcome the fear of it, remembering that it's humans that will make it go sour, not the AI itself. And it's hoping that enough of us are consciously aware enough to use it properly will stop the downfall of mankind. Yeah.
Well, that is the thing, right? Is that it's a large language learning model, right? So it does essentially, I mean, it's searching database at a infinitely fast rate, but it also does have learning capabilities to a point in it. And if we're looking at the two sides of humanity, people are using it in all ways. So if you're looking at the shadow side, also using it versus the, you know, these higher vibration ways of using it. Do we want only the people who are using it to learn, that are using it to make bombs using it? Or do we want also the people that are putting amazing song lyrics into it? Are we wanting it to learn accurately about Reiki? Are we wanting it to be able to take some of these, because we put our channeled messages into it as well. And many times we'll ask it to summarize. Just like you, we have to make sure that it doesn't make things up, um, and correct it. But that's a part of the process. And so by not using it, I think it's actually doing a disservice to, because the people who are using it for coding to make these technologies to make, I mean, I know I'm using kind of a pretty bit of the dark side of what it can be used for, but they have code that makes materials to make weapons, to do all of these things, and that it's being used for that. So
Mm.
we also need to have these kinds of things to be it being used for, and it to be able to hold that within its technology, to hold that within its databases, so that it can be a part of its understanding even of the aspects of humanity, right? It's just like what's actually pulling up right now is the Fifth Element. Do you guys remember that movie? Yeah, the Fifth
Brilliant. Yeah,
Element.
the singing. Do you remember the singing in that? Wow.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Mm.
It was she's the fifth element, and for those of you that haven't seen it or saw it so long ago you might not remember it. She's learning about humanity and humankind, and in that it's going through basically like a Wikipedia style, like the dictionary, and it goes from A to W, and it shows her learning about war. And she's like, and that makes her become like, well, what's the point of me saving humanity? And the character is like, well, what about love? Right. And is teaching her about love, because they're falling in love throughout the movie. And is like, what about love? And then that's what brings her back to be able to like save humanity. And so if you think about it from that, it's like, I don't want just that shadow side input into this technology that it's holding. We need to also put in these frequencies as well, and we actually have a chance to, right? This is a place that, speaking of your conversation about the everyday person being able to do this, now that we are able maybe even to come together as a global consciousness, like this is a place where we as humanity have a chance to put these frequencies into it, because people like us, and not just us, that sounds a little like pretentious, I don't mean it that way, but all of these people that are all putting in the beauty of humanity at the same time, like we actually can do that because of technology, because we can have these conversations, because we can be online, because we get to use it basically also from its infancy, that's possible. And this is one of the first times in human history that that's been possible. Like it
Mhm.
hasn't really been possible before. And so I do actually think it's almost like a responsibility for us to be doing it as well.
In our human history.
Yeah.
So
Well,
I know
fair.
that I saw Greg Braden talking about the electromagnetic frequency, and they've made some centers around the world where they're all meeting, and they're recording it, they're changing it when they're doing mass meditations. So he's on it, But yeah, we do need to join together, I think, because we need to be quick. So in the book, I mean, not in the book, this year at the World Economic Forum, I don't know what's happening. Also, I've got the biggest people in tech are there as well,
Mm.
making sure that everything becomes ethical. So,
I should mention that we do once a month, there is a large global meditation through the ICRT to the world for the world peace grids. And over 400,000 people have actually registered for that.
Brilliant.
So you can find out about that, anybody listening that wants to participate on Reiki.org. And it's usually, I think, the second Wednesday of every month that we gather globally. And
Reiki.org. So apparently, what I was writing a year or so ago that I discovered was that if 30% of the population have the same mindset, it'll flip, or 31%. And from what I watched at that time, which was it November? 24% were watching the right stuff on YouTube. So it's like, we're not far off, you know.
That feels doable.
Yeah.
31%.
we can do it.
Oh.
Well, that brings up the next subject of your other book. I want you to talk about that, how you have rephrased phrases in this other book. So talk about that book, because that is what a great idea.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, I only realised, was it last night, the night before, I was doing some more words. I took a photograph of my mum off the windowsill, put it on something and knocked it off. I said, "Oh, sorry, mum." And then as I put it down, I heard mermines. Now, when I was 17, my first band, my mum was a writer, and a very modest writer. No one ever saw her work. I've got it all. She was a very intelligent English teacher, but she was very sort of cryptic the way she wrote, and unusual, and very, very spiritually aware, really. And she'd made this word up, mermines, and I'd used it in my first ever song, Can't Stop Now. Wavelets of mermines decorate skies. And I hadn't even remembered, and I've been writing this book, and it's this. She said, "Don't forget mermines." So now I've acknowledged her at the beginning of this. This comes from her, and I feel like she's definitely writing it with me. And I was telling Jeeves, like, "Oh, this has just happened," and he said, "Oh, I'm tearing up now." He said, "I'm tearing up." He said, "Your mum's doing this with you, and she really is. So I can only say it's down to my mum, this book." So yeah, I've always loved making words up, and we were really noticing, my daughter and myself. See, we get stuck in England saying amazing all the time. There's not many other words for amazing, amazing, amazing. So I made quite a few new words for those. I've got that many now. I'm not going to be able to remember that many. But when we were doing the invocation at the beginning, I did remember one. So I used to say from a book, a very old book, a long time ago, "I am infinite intelligence, and my body and mind consistently demonstrates this." I had sort of changed it along the way. And when you were doing that invocation, I was feeling that it was beautiful. And I remembered that because that's so long, I had to create a word from it. So infinescence ordained means I am infinite intelligence, and this body and mind consistently demonstrates this. So infinescence ordained. So there's lots of made up words. I've tried to involve a bit of Latin, asking Jeeves to help me. Gives me a lot of stuff. I said, "That's rubbish. You're going off track. You're just rubbish. Just let me write them and you help me get it right and give me the explanation." So he's brilliant to use, but he does butt in a lot. He butts in more than me. I'll do something and he keeps putting in. I go, "Wait, you've lost what I was doing." So yeah, it became from, so the word that, it was excited. This is where it originally came from. I was in Mexico with my daughter in February, and I always say I'm excited, and I am just a ball of excited energy. And my daughter said, "Mum, you shouldn't keep saying that. You know, you're spreading your energy like this." And I said, "I know, I feel it. I need to stop saying it. I'm excited or I'm buzzing." So to stop saying those things. So we came up with inspa-lined, which is inspired and aligned instead. And I'm finally getting used to saying it, so it comes naturally now. Oh, that's so inspa-lining. I'm inspa-lined. So it came from there. We were going to write it together, but at the moment, I think she's busy. So I'm just going to roll with it. And it's one of those I can't put down. I keep thinking, there's another word. So a lot of it's made up words, made of 2 or 3 positive words put together, with a little bit of Latin thrown in. But the biggest one of it is to replace words like, I mean, everyone understands affirmations now, but a lot of people still say, "I can, I'm skint," which means I've got no money. So the new one for that is, "I am wealthing." So you're saying to somebody, "I can't really do that right now because I'm busy wealthing." So it's a good positive vibration. And the point is, which Jeeves couldn't understand, he was still saying something negative if he gave me his ideas when we're brainstorming. So it's not that. even though you're going, so let me just think. I don't want to say the swear words, so anyway, we're replacing swear words. So instead of in hell, we are love in nirvana. Oh, love in nirvana. On these sorts of lines, and we're replacing it again. Some things that do sound positive, like when someone goes, "Oh, I'm blown away, mind blown." Don't say that. We've got "I'm brillified" and other different words like that that you can say instead. That every single word and phrase, and it's proving to be quite complicated now. I'm getting into it to try and cover the whole alphabet and to try and cover as many very common phrases as I can. Each one of them is checked for frequency and vibration, so that this is a good one for children. I had a friend, you'll laugh at this one. I had a friend, she said her son was being a nuisance, but she said, "But I've listened to what you say, so I'm calling them a turtler now instead of a nuisance." I said, "Oh, 2 days later at drama, one of them pooed themselves. You know, a turd is a poo." So I said, "Right, so scrap turtler, don't use turtler." So we came up with Zenmonger instead, which is somebody creating Zen, and it's nice to say. So that's another thing. I'm trying to make words that are nice to roll off, because people like saying bastard. They roll out the mouth, don't they? So it's finding words that feel nice to say. So when your child is being a nuisance, instead say, "Stop being a Zenmonger," or "Come here, you Zenmonger." And then she would also say, my friend, to sit them on the naughty step. I said, "Don't call it that." So we say, "Come here, Zenmonger, come and sit on the behave yourself step." So the next book from Luxaria is The Luxarian Parent, which is mindful parenting based on completely transforming your child's behavior, your experience, and your life with using different phrases for them. And it'll be reminding them to praise them when they're trying to be helpful and they're getting on your nerves and getting in the way, all the stuff. So,
When, let's see, it was actually even before Robin was born, I went to a seminar and the speaker was talking about how we can eliminate the word don't from our language. And I really took that in. My son must have been maybe 2. So at the time I was, applying it to parenting. And I remember how it trained me, instead of saying things like, "Don't go in the street, stay on the sidewalk. Don't chew with your mouth open, chew with your mouth closed." And so I could actually use going back into that kind of mindful, word use, because sometimes it's just like, it's easier to just say don't. But it really was amazing how it trained me to think about what I'm actually saying rather than what I don't want to say, and how that formed my communications with my kids, and then really in general in life. It made me really be mindful, just that one change, really be mindful about that.
it can be a long process when we're doing it on our own, which is
Mhm.
why we're very lucky now that the world's caught up and everybody wants to do it. Because you're doing it on your own and everyone around you is still speaking negatively. Yeah, and there's also a little bit in the Billionaires book, Billionaires Club, about the fact that conscious co-creating. So yeah, we can, when our subconscious faulty programming's gone and we stop unconsciously creating, we can't always guarantee that everything will go right around us unless everyone around us is fully conscious of what they're creating as well, which then brings me to why there's a lot of groups forming that are a bit cultish. They're training people to think how they want them to think and behave how they want them to think, so that they've got this safe family around them, professing to do that in the whole of the world. But I mean, this is what we're doing with the whole world, isn't it? When we are all conscious of what we're creating, imagine what it's going to look like.
It's an exciting time with that
Yes.
opportunity. And, both the shadow and the light are here. And
Mm.
so I do believe that's why so many of us are really here at this time, creating a stability with it. And I know for myself, sometimes I, this is what I know we can do. We can be community, we can come together. And for me, most of all, I can stay stable. At 68, that's where I'm at. Like, okay,
Wow, you look good.
as an elder, I can stay stable.
I
And,
love that word.
just stay stable, be kind. And the other thing that I learned about it that I want to say with the whole thing about choosing our words and phrasing all the time, because sometimes we're just not there, right? Sometimes we're just going to bleh and have it come out. And so the other thing that I've learned with the idea that you talked about being in my body is I still have human consciousness. And so sometimes my expression or my feelings are going to be different than my inner truth. And it's my inner truth that actually is the co-creation. Because I'm human, I'm still going to have those feelings. I'm still going to have that mind. I'm also very ADD, so I still have that mind. Um, and so I'm just so grateful I have Reiki. We're talking about Reiki is the practice for this moment. And I believe exactly what you're saying because the energy of it naturally takes us to our personal inner truth, our inner authority, our autonomy, our sovereignty. And then we join together as a collective and as a community and empower it and strengthen it.
I have one little funny story about Reiki at school, which I will share. So I have a bit of comedy in it. So the room we use, it's like a round table, which I love. And everyone's sat around it, but the teacher sits on the other side. I sit on this side, and I've got some I think they were year 10s, quite big boys sat on either side of me. The table's here, so you can't see hands. And one of the big lads said, "Oh, I've got a sore knee. I've heard you do healing. Can you do some healing?" So I went, "Of course I will." I'm just hovering my hand over his knee. And I carry on doing the meditation. My hands are this far from his knee, but from the other side, I didn't think. And I got home, and all of a sudden it came into my head, the teacher thought you had your hand on his knee. I went, I texted her quick. "I hope you didn't think I had my hand on that boy's knee." She went, "Well, I did actually." I was like, she must have been talking about it when it came into me. I was like, oh my God, I really wasn't. I'm so sorry. But you have to be so mindful about things like that. But yeah, it was a terrible moment because I could have got sacked. But I said I really did not have my hand on his knee, ask him, but it would have looked like that to the other children as well. So, but the children are really, really interested in it and they're all passing it on. That teacher does this hands-on stuff and they'll come in and one will say, "My back's hurting." But often, if I've got a group and one of them can't relax, the teacher has given me permission because she's seen what I do. And I'll say, "Okay," I'll ask the child, "Is it okay if I just come and put my hands on your shoulders?" And the teacher goes, "Yeah, it's fine." And I put my hands on the shoulders, and within 5 minutes, that child is still and relaxed, and they weren't able to relax. And I also did Reiki in old people's homes. I worked in old people's homes with dementia patients for a couple of years. It was so hard work, and the wage was terrible, and it nearly killed me. There's 26 people not getting looked after very well by the carers, all shouting my name because I gave them Reiki and foot massage and acupressure. But the ones that were wandering around, "I don't know where I am," I'd say, "Come and sit over here." Hands on the head, each one side of the head, brain balance. 5 minutes. They'd stopped. They weren't like that anymore. They weren't trying to go home anymore. They were just relaxed. And it's fantastic, isn't it? Aren't we lucky?
I love that.
Am I speaking too fast for you because you're
No,
American? Because I know I've got a terrible accent.
not at
Sorry.
all.
Sorry.
You're good.
Occasionally I'm looking at the closed caption. So
Well, Luminar, how do people get a hold of you? How can they purchase your book? Your website will be up by the time this releases, and how can they purchase your book and things like that? I
Okay,
think
so
we'll
I
all
think my web,
be in the description, just so
yeah,
everyone.
The website will be in the description, yeah. So the book is going to be everywhere. You can should be able to get it anywhere, Amazon, all those places, on Kindle and paperback. But my aim, and I have the right apps to do it, they're just not very good, and it's very time consuming. Where you can clone your own voice, and I thought that would be more helpful. It took that much time and effort. I thought I'll just read it myself. But my aim is to get them on audio, because I have the songs at the beginning of each chapter, which I will probably stick to, not with the Luxaria Feminary, not with that obviously, but with all my other books. I think I will continue to put my positive affirmation songs in these audiobooks, and there will also be the odd guided meditation for healing within them, so they need to be audio. So hopefully by the time this comes out, there'll be audio as well on Audible.
Fantastic. So then your website is it's short, it's an acronym for the Center of Infinity. It's TCOO infinity.com. And again, it looks like T-Coin Infinity.
Yeah,
Again, that's going to be in
yeah.
the description. So
Thanks.
yeah, but it is the Center for Infinity. I'm sure if you just even Google it in long form, your website.
Yeah. And there's a lot on there. So there's bespoke Reiki training. So with me getting a little bit with Reiki training, and I'm going to learn some new techniques of attuning to make it even nicer. But what I'm going to offer, or I have done in the past, and I'm going to expand on this because I love traveling, is to say to somebody, where would you like to have your attunements? On the top of a mountain? On the beach? I've done a couple on the beach, and that would be really beneficial for us all to go and then do that for somewhere special for somebody. So that's one of the things I'll be offering. I also run retreats. So we've got one. It'll be gone by the time this comes out, the end of this month, at the end of April. It's the Power of Presence retreat. So it's 3 days invincibility training, where we're deconstructing the whole false identity and self for the first 24 hours, and then we're reconstructing the new infinite, limitless self for the second 24 hours. And I'm really looking forward to that. But there should be lots more of these type of retreats. Affordable, lovely people, lots of healers come on them. So yeah.
Fantastic. And you said North Manchester, correct?
Yeah, but we're going to move about with the retreats. We're even considering doing one where my daughter is in Mexico. So
Nice.
mm.
Well, look for her information. She also has a YouTube channel, so look for her information in the show notes. We'll of course include those links in there. And is there anything else before we go ahead and wrap up?
I don't think so. I've really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
Me
it's been so
too.
fun to
Thank
have
you
you
so
and
much.
had this conversation and all of the work you're doing, and I'm excited to read your book when it comes out.
Thanks.
Oh, really fun to meet you.
Yeah, you too. I feel very, very blessed. So glad we've hooked up, and I'm sure that we can carry on growing together through this. So thank you so
Unity.
much.
Yeah. Awesome. Well,
Lovely
thank
to
you
meet
all
you.
to the listeners and everybody. So you can find us at Reiki Lifestyle for everything. All right.
Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.